Alrighty, welcome to our Action Expert webinar. Today we'll be discussing upgrading from Deltek Vision to Vantagepoint. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Don Brown. He is a senior application consultant here at Action. Go ahead and hand it on over to you, Don.
Awesome. Thanks, Sullivan. Really appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Just to kind of expand on it, I'm a senior consultant here at Action. Been with them a little over 4 years. Before I worked here, I worked in the industry. I worked at an architecture and interior design firm for many, many years and was a vision user up until 4 years ago when I joined Action here. So learning Vantagepoint, kind of how you will learn it as you kind of upgrade through your process. I empathy from I was a huge vision user, right, and was for a long time and loved the product. But Vantagepoint is going to offer us so much more, right? So today we're really going to be going through, what are the benefits of moving to Vantagepoint? What are the new features? How does Action take you through an upgrade to get you to the other side, go live in your Vantagepoint environment? So we're going to get all those questions answered, and to Sullivan's point, we're going to do some Q&A at the end. So feel free to kind of pop the questions in here, knowing that Vision now has a sustained, an end date, right? We want to make sure we get our clients in a really great place for their upgrades, so that way they're kind of not against the wall, and that we have a good bit of time to kind of get you there in a nice way. So I'm going to do some PowerPoints here, and then I'm actually just going to get into the database, right? I want you to see what the product looks like. I want to show you where those big differences are, and show you some of the great things that the product has to offer. So why? Why should we upgrade? Well, we kind of have to at this point, right? They're going into sustaining support in 2026. So kind of getting you to the other side over to Vantagepoint with enough time, right? Depending on, firms are so different. A smaller firm that doesn't have as many modules, a large firm that has everything going for it, right? Those upgrades take different time, right? Some may take a shorter time, some may take a longer time, depending on the complexity of your vision database. So, one of the first things we're going to do right out the bat is we're going to do, our 4-step upgrade process, right? So some of the things we're going to talk about is just in general, the user experience, right? Vision hasn't really had much of a facelift in a really long time, and now it's not going to anymore, right? There's not going to be that many more updates to it. The user interface, how you use it, how all the fields that are dynamic, right? We're going to show you all these different navigations that collapse and expand, how you can search on certain fields with relative ease. These are the things we're going to kind of walk you through today. But, if you haven't had a chance to look at the Deltek product, when you see today, you'll notice there's a vast difference in just the visual cue of the system. So we'll take a look at that. They're really starting to lean into the AI tools, right? So they have what's called Ask Della. So we're going to talk through that. Della is the digital assistant in Vantagepoint where you can ask questions. They're going to be building upon this in the future where you can start records with Della. So really starting to kind of lean into the AI. If you've had a view of Vantagepoint before, the feature used to be called Hey Deltek. And it was more like a Alexa or Siri situation where you could ask them questions too. This one takes it to the next level here. So some of the big changes, right? So if you were using opportunities in Vision, opportunities were separate from projects and projects were separate from plans. In Vantagepoint, there are no true opportunities. There is a project that you take through the life cycle, that you would take it through the in pursuit stages, like you would have taken an opportunity through. But it's one record, you enter one time, there's no duplicative entry, really streamlining the process. I think, the biggest change is this change is now that you're going to have a project that you're going to take through different stages. You can require different fields at different stages. So as you're kind of building that project, right, you're grabbing the fields that we need. So that way, when we win that work and we hand that project over to accounting, to, to do invoicing and all the things that they do. The project record itself has robust information into it. So we'll kind of talk about that process in here. So that's really the biggest change from Vision to Vantagepoint, is opportunities are really part of the project record lifecycle at this point. And then within the project itself, you'll find pieces of the old opportunity. So you don't lose any functionality around, what I think the value might be, what probability do I have, what's that weighted fee look like. So you still get all the information that you would have gotten from an opportunity, but with only one entry point. You're going to be taking the project through stages. So this is, again, if you have the CRM module, you're going to take it through stages. You can then at that point change stages, add stages, right? So this list and this drop down is just what we have, but we could have a whole different set of stages in here. And this is as you're setting up a project, right? I was initially set it up to negotiation, right? And then I'm going to move that stage to awaiting signature. And this is where I was talking about, as you're moving it to different stages, you can require different fields in the project record. So that way you're kind of getting all that information as you need it, basically gathering all the required data. So that way you can hand it off to the next team. Dashboards. I mean, this is really where it's at in Vantagepoint. So dynamic, visually pleasing information, live time in front of the people that are the ones that need it so desperately. So project managers, business development, executive teams, employee dashboards. So, this is really where we want people to spend a good bit of time developing them, because it is information that nobody has to remember how to run a report. What were the settings? I'm not getting the same information month over month, right? These are managed and created by your administrators, pushed out to people either by security role or by individual employee. So this is great. And you can see the different types of dashboards. The little pieces inside are dash parts. So some of them are going to be more Excel data driven. Some of them are going to be more graphical. As we kind of get into the live demo, I'm going to show you that some of these are actually interactive, where I can suppress certain fields, hide certain information, highlight certain other information. So really the dashboards are one of my major selling points for Vantagepoint. It is superior for sure. So you can have global dashboards like we talked about just before. So that's where your administrator is kind of creating them and maintaining them. And then you also in Vantagepoint can have personal dashboards where you as the employee create and maintain your own dashboards. And this is really just giving flexibility, because the global dashboards are going to be what is good for the larger firm. And then what are the little things that I want to see that maybe, aren't going to make it to the global dashboard? So this really gives you the ability to create some of your own in there that you find valuable for you to be successful in your roles. Resource planning. So this is another area where in Vision, if you were doing planning, the planning was completely separated from the project record. You could create the plan from the project and vice versa one time. But the structure, say that there was an ad service on the project, I'd have to then go to the plan and add the ad service there. So what's really nice is that they put a lot of guardrails around the planning, because there really wasn't many in Vision. In Vision, I could create a standalone plan that wasn't tied to a project. I could have multiple projects tied to a plan, vice versa. I could change the rates, the work breakdown structure, really just completely independent of the project record. In Vantagepoint, it is tied directly to the project record. So you can't get to a plan. You can't create a standalone plan. You have to have a project. And that plan structure is going to be automatically tied to your project structure. So no double entry, avoiding non-compliant plans, really kind of brings in the information. You can see kind of behind here, I will show you this today. This information coming in, this is coming in from contract management. So contract management is pushing directly into my plan. The structure of the project is coming directly in from my project itself. So You can never have a plan structure that is different than your project. So really helpful here as well. So once you start doing the planning, right, then you can come over here and now you can start to look at the resource management, the resource view. Now, this is a separate module. Resource planning is a separate module. This is different than, say, like your accounting or your back office licensing. So, you know, this is if you really want to see kind of your employees' utilization. There, you can see it in 3 views here: utilization percentage, scheduled percentage, so based on their hours per day, and just their planned hours. And we're going to go into this where you can actually see each person's percentages, what projects they're working on, you know, how many hours they're planned for. And then there's some really great dash parts that we can push to employee dashboards that will allow them to see what they're planned on for the next 4 weeks, next 6 months. They can control the forecast. So really nice visibility in here. Once you start to use the planning tool, then this information becomes available. So getting started with confidence, right? So we know we're going to move from vision to Vantagepoint. What does that process look like? So here at Aktion, we really want to work directly with you through the entire process, right? So the first thing we do is what's called a readiness report or assessment. So what this does is this is going to take a snapshot of your vision database and kind of give us a lot of information. It's going to give us what modules you own, how many licenses you have. It's going to come through and show us any workflows that you have, any custom fields or user-defined fields or grids. And this is really helpful to look at because some of those do need to be looked at, some of those workflows, right? Depending on what they are, we would need to take a look at them, maybe rebuild them. It's also going to give us a look at duplicative information. So duplicative clients and vendors. If you're using planning and vision, any projects that are non-compliant, any opportunities that haven't been closed, that aren't at the awarded or won stage, right? It's going to give us all that information. So that way we can say, okay, these are the things we want to tackle before we go live. We want to clean these things up for the following reasons, right? So it is a snapshot, gives you some homework to get into the vision database and kind of prepare it for that Vantagepoint upgrade. Once we kind of do that, and we're kind of doing that through the entire time working together, like that all doesn't have to be done, you know, before we start the next process, which is what we call planning meetings, right? So the next thing we do is, okay, now we got a snapshot of your vision. Now let's take a look and see how you're using vision. You know, every client and firm uses it a little bit differently, right? We're looking at your, you know, project numbering, your organizations or profit centers. We're really taking a look at how your processes work to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made going into Vantagepoint, or just giving you best practices, right? A lot of times we've been in vision for a long, long time and we're just doing it the way we know how to do it. But it's a time to also take a step back and say, how can we make an improvement here, right? What's the best thing to do? Use that opportunity to kind of pivot a little bit. So we'll do those planning sessions with you. We'll work with you. We'll kind of learn how you're using the database. And then we'll pull a preview environment of Vantagepoint. So what that'll do, it'll bring over all of your transactional information from Vision and drop that into a Vantagepoint preview environment. And at that point, we're going through and we're taking a look at your settings, right? So configuration in Vision, settings in Vantagepoint. So all your default settings, just to make sure we have the database foundation set up the way we want to. So that way, as we start to get into testing and everything, we've already vetted all that out. So we're going to help you with finding out how you're using Vision. We're going to go through all your configuration together. And then once we get through your configuration, we're actually going to get into testing, right? Because that's where the meat of the work is, to test all the processes to make sure that they're working over in Vantagepoint as intended. And if there are changes that we made, going through there and kind of signing off on, looks great. Yep, we love that process. But also training, right? So making sure that you are fully trained. Aktion, we want to train the trainers, right? We want to give you the ability to then turn and go to the next level of people in your group and train them. So we also offer what's called super user training. So we'll work with your core group through the whole process up until the point where we're testing and we're like, yep, we got the process down. Then we typically will bring in a little bit of a larger group. Could be up to 16 people, depending on your firm. It could be 4 people, right? And they come in and we teach them what we've just done, right? They don't need to worry about configuration or planning. And then they really, at that point, just need to know these are the new processes that we're putting in place in Vantagepoint. And we kind of build your, Vantagepoint army to work with. Also, like I said, data cleanup and optimization. So, we say between 3 to 6 months is a good time frame for an upgrade, right? Depending on how complex your database is, how many modules you own, right? You're going to be higher in the months, less modules, less licensing, less customizations. You'll be closer to 3 months in there. But during that time frame, you're still in Vision, right? That's your day-to-day database. So you're still in Vision, still working in that product. What we want to do is take that opportunity to say, let's clean up in Vision, so that way when we get over to Vantagepoint, we've got a pretty good, clean new database in there. So that's happening the whole time, right? You don't have to get all that done before we pull a preview environment or bring in super user training. You just want to make sure that's all done before we actually go live. And again, even if we go live and we don't get every little thing kind of cleaned up, you're going to be in, look how long you've been in Vision, right? Like I said, I was in Vision for almost 15 years. Vantagepoint's brand new to you. You're going to be in this database for a while. So even if we don't clean every little thing up, we can clean it up on the other side. It's not it's not like if you don't get it done here, you never get it done. Right. So the whole time we are going to be looking towards your go live date, right? So we'll get together and we'll pick a go live date. That go live date, you do that on the Deltek Support Center. We go on together, kind of walk through the process, pick that date. And, depending on how long that update process is, we'll pull a preview environment to begin with. And then as we kind of get closer to maybe the super user training, we will do what's called a refresh, which they'll do, take another snapshot of your Vision transactional data and put that in a new Vantagepoint database. We will overlay anything we work together on, workflows, design, grids, anything that we do in Vantagepoint that we want to retain. There's a process called the transfer settings that we then would overlay on top of the new refresh data. So you're not working too far in arrears with the databases being out of balance. So we're always, kind of trying to figure out when the best time to do that is. Like I said, most of us will do it right before super user training, so that those new people coming in are seeing fresh data from Vision and all of the work we've done together on top of that. And we're not going anywhere, right? Like after go live, we want to be with you. We want to work with you. We're going to be with you for a couple of months. Most clients still need support after go live, right? For whether that's, we need a refresher on time and expense, or now we've been in the database for enough. Now we want to bring in this new module or this new process, right? So Action's goal is to have a long relationship with you. We'll know your database. We'll kind of even get the vibe of your company and your employees, and we want to kind of build upon that. Beyond your upgrade, so not part of your upgrade here, but there is what's called an effectiveness review. So a lot of clients are doing this before they even start the upgrade. So this one here and this is like normally an on-site visit. We would come in and we would really look at every single process from every single angle and give you best practices before you kind of start this whole journey. Below here, Vantage Pro tools, these are all things that Aktion has developed that are available to purchase to bring into your database. So some of those things we see a lot of are billing terms automation. There's a lot of duplicative entry from the project structure and then contract management. And then I have to go into my billing terms and kind of re-enter all that information. There's a way to automate that. And we've created a process for that. A fleet maintenance hub. One of the ones we get a lot of traction on is the master service agreement hub, which is it kind of brings in all these projects are part of this master service agreement. It tracks how much we've spent and billed. It also does expiration dates and notifications. So there are a lot of great things that Aktion has developed separately. So if you have any interest in that, we can send you some data there. Some of the big questions we get when people are moving from Vision to Vantagepoint is, will I lose my data? No, everything comes over. All your data, all your custom fields, nothing's getting removed from the database. So, some of the things I do tell my clients is, if you do have a lot of custom fields, and a lot of us do, right? Tracking things that, are specific to my industry or my business, those are custom fields. So the way that they're handled is any custom field on a standard tab in any of the hubs. So kind of terminology check here. So they are info centers in Vision. They are now called hubs in Vantagepoint. So when you hear me say hubs, just kind of think of info centers. All of those fields are retained. They just get moved to the bottom of it was the general tab. Now it's called the overview tab. And we just do some design work. And I'm going to show you some of the design work in Vantagepoint. It is so much easier to use. You do it all in one place. So we do spend some time kind of redesigning and saying, okay, are we still using these fields? Do we hide them? Do we delete them? Right? We'll kind of work with you there, but you don't lose anything. Everything comes over. Do you have to upgrade? At some point, yes, right? Vision enters the sustaining support February 1st of 2026. This means there's no new changes for maintenance or security issues. So at some point, yes, you're going to have to move off of Vision and move into Vantagepoint. Like I said, give yourself a good 3 to 6 month window, depending on the size of your firm, the complexity of your database. But you have to move at some point. So we'll come back to questions. I do want to pop into the database here. So this is our demo database. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here. So this is Vantagepoint. So it's a web page, right? You're going to get a URL. You come in here, you save it as a favorite. This is how you're going to get into it. You can use username and password. There's single sign-on options. So if you're using that in Vision, that also still lives here in Vantagepoint. So down the left-hand side here is your navigation pane, just like you had in Vision. They just really stacked it differently. So, in Vantagepoint, there's an area called My Stuff. And this is really for the individual employee, right? This is where their timesheet is and their expense report and their approval center. So if you're a time, expense, absence request, purchase order approver, you would have access to the approval center. This is where you would come and see all the things that the system is looking for you to do. They moved all the reporting. I know in reporting was its own area in the navigation pane in Vision. They've moved all the reporting up under My Stuff. So we go through each security role and we identify which roles have what reports, and then those reports would be available here. Dashboards, I'm going to come back and show you some of these. Hubs, so again, info centers in Vision, hubs in Vantagepoint. So, I would say the big change here, and this is depending on what role, what licensing you have. If you don't have CRM, you're not going to see activities or boilerplates or marketing campaigns. But if you do, you will. The other biggest change, I think, in Vision to Vantagepoint is in Vision, you had a client info center and you had a vendor info center. In Vantagepoint, they've combined those into one called the Firms Hub. So firms being both clients and vendors. Beneath that, I have AR review, so client-specific accounts receivables, and vendors, voucher review, vendor-specific information. So that's one of the things that you'll see in your readiness report is in Vision, do you have a client and a vendor who are the same person? We do? Great. There's a way to connect them in Vision so that way when we pull a preview environment, they come over as one record into Vantagepoint, right? So those are the things that we're kind of looking for in that readiness report to kind of bring the information over as needed, right? So, again, marketing campaigns part of CRM. Here are some of those Aktion created hubs. So the master service hub, professional licensing, user maintenance. Your projects hub, again, now has like everything listed for the project. So project review, your contract management, your project plan, because everything's tied together, it's all sitting underneath the projects hub. And then honestly, as you get further and further down in your view here, it gets more and more specific. right? So resource management, proposals, this is a separate module, um, billing, your transactions, all your payment information, accounting, general ledger, payroll, purchasing. Again, you're going to get more and more specific as you get down here. And we identify in each security role like what everybody needs to be successful in their roles. But they've done some pretty cool things in here. So if you are an administrator and you have a pretty robust navigation pane, they've given us some opportunities to kind of favorite the area. So I've already favorited my timesheet. You'll notice that this one's not filled in. That's not part of my favorites tab. This one is. So what they've done for us is they've given us the ability to say, these are the things I use often, right? So then I can come to my favorites tab and I can just see those things. I use them a couple different ways. I use them for things that I use often and for things that I don't use often enough, right? So whether it's an undo posting or a refresh billing extension or a lock transaction, things that I know where they're at, but it might take me 3 or 4 clicks to get there, or I can just go to my favorites tab and go right there directly. They've also given us this find application field. So you'll notice when you get into Vantagepoint, every field is dynamic. So if I just type the word time, it's only going to show me the areas within my navigation pane that have the word time in here, right? So then kind of filtering out all the rest of it. I also can collapse and expand my navigation pane, which you will do more than you think you will, just because you want to get more real estate on your screen here. And then as you're in the database long enough, you'll know what these symbols are, and you can just use these kind of bump outs and then leave that closed all the time. If you're multi-company, this is where you can toggle between your companies. More for the accounting folks, probably, this is where you can change your period. You'll notice that there's a little number up here. So this is the notification center. So there are 2 ways to communicate with people from Vantagepoint, via email and via the notification center. So the notification center is going to give me 2 different types. Action items, things that the system is looking for me to do, right? Whether I have purchase orders for review or expense reports waiting for my review, AP invoices waiting for my review, right? All these blue things are hyperlinks that will take you to that place in the database so you can do those action items. As you complete the action items, they will drop the number down here, kind of come out of your list. So this is sort of your running list of things to do. You also, sometimes there's just things the system wants to notify you about, right? You don't necessarily have an action, but we want to tell you all about it. So you would have a notification down here. You can read that notification, and then there'll be a little trash can over here, and then you can get rid of it. I'm Pat Hill. This is totally not my picture, but under here, you can actually create some preferences for yourself in here, right? Do I search typically by number or by name? Am I an approver and I'm going to be out for an extended period of time? I can delegate my approvals to a different person. So that way nothing kind of gets missed while I'm out. This one, this is sort of the classic view, but they also offer the dark mode view, right? So that way, if this view is a little bit easier for you, right? And you're just setting this for you, so you're not impacting anybody else's user experience here. And these are all choices that you get to make. One of the ones I really like is the startup tab. So when we came in, we're on the welcome page here. But I can say, maybe if there's a good portion of our employees that are just coming in here to do timesheets. They're not approvers. They don't really have a lot of expenses. They are the people doing the work. We can say, open this application to My Stuff timesheets. So every single time they come into Vantagepoint, they can come right to their timesheets, which then kind of promotes that daily timesheet collection that everyone's looking for. If I'm a project manager, maybe I wanted to open up to my dashboards, right? So it's nice that you can point the system every time it opens up. This is where I want it to go. Again, you can put an image of yourself into the database. I don't look like this. This is Pat Hill. You can change your password from here. I'm just going to pop over here just to show you. I'm just going to pop into a timesheet real fast. Not to show you the timesheet, but to show you the help function. So the help function in Vantagepoint is fantastic. It's a little question mark up in the top right here. So I get online help. So this is going to give me all information about timesheets. The help function is location specific to where you are in the database. So I'm in timesheets, so all that information about timesheets. They also have a video out here, how to enter and submit timesheets. The Deltek Learning Hub. So this is a really great resource. This, you don't need a preview environment. You don't need a username. You don't need a password. This is free to everybody. You can come in here and you can say, I want to learn, and I want to learn by courses and videos or by product, right? And then from here, I can learn about timesheets, expense reports, projects, proposals. So if you have questions about like, how does that work in Vantagepoint, come to the Deltek Learning Hub. We will pop this in the chat for you. Again, like I said, it is a free web you can go to, no username, no password. You would just pick the product. And then from here, you can kind of really look at it from many different versions here. So great resource, free to everybody. You can contact your Deltek support center from here. Now I'm going to just click into some of the projects, right? So like projects is the biggest one, right? So if I go into my hubs, again, info centers are hubs now, and I come down to my projects hub and I go to my actual project record here. This is where I can come in and find all of my projects that have come over from Vision to Vantagepoint. I can look at them, pull them up by name, by number. And then they have a bunch of different filters for us, right? So, you know, all these ones are kind of standard ones that come with Vantagepoint. We can create custom searches. And what I mean by searches is record selections, right? Like one of the searches that I find really helpful for project managers are a new search. Again, there's my searches, things that I've saved for myself, shared searches, things that I've created and shared with other people or they've shared with me. And then down the very bottom here, I can create new searches. This is how I can put in my criteria to find everything. So one of the changes from Vision to Vantagepoint is in Vision, if you did a search dialog, down the bottom left here, there was an active only checkbox. So they've kind of done away with that. And what they've done is they've given as a default, every time you come into a dialog box like this, the status is equal to active. So if you need to see the other statuses, inactive or dormant, right, you would want to come in here and change that. But again, these fields are dynamic. So if I come in here and I say, I want to see active projects where the charge type, which is regular, overhead, or promotional, is equals to, so this is still the operator, equals to regular. And then what we're used to doing in Vision is coming over here and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to find what we want. In Vantagepoint, like I said, the fields are dynamic. So I can, if I'm looking for a project manager, I'm actually going to look for the word manager because I'm going to get less results than the word project, right? So I can come through here and say project manager is me, right? So I only have one project in the database here. This is a really great search that you can then save for yourself, right? And then use that search in reporting, all kinds of places in the database in here. But showing you, say, a new project, because this is really the biggest change. I'm going to create a project. It's going to be a regular project. And this is the stages I was talking about. So this is a big change because people are like, well, I don't want that regular project being available because we didn't win it yet. The good part about it is it won't be. The regular project, if you put it in any of these stages, these are called in pursuit stages. So we haven't won the work yet. So whether it's a proposal submitted or requested, right, I can then create a promotional project with it. That promotional project will be available for timesheets. And that promotional project is really the intent for that project in Vantagepoint is just to collect the in pursuit costs. So that way, if I wanted to come back later and say, how much did it really cost me from the moment I heard about it to the moment I closed that work out, I could look at those two projects, put the information together, and then see that. You can create projects 3 ways in Vantagepoint manually, right? Create the entire work breakdown structure from the ground up. from another project, so copying from an existing project in your database that has its own challenges, and then from a project template. So project templates, they currently live in Vantagepoint's desktop version. So there is a web version and there's a desktop version. 99.9% of the people will never have to go to the desktop version. There's just a handful of things that they haven't moved out of there yet. So probably your administrators, maybe some people from accounting might need to go into that desktop, but you can create it from any of those. I will say one of the nice things about creating it from a template is that even if you copy from an existing project in Vantagepoint, you envision if I copied from an existing project, it would give me the entire structure of the project, whether I needed it or not. The way it works in Vantagepoint, it's going to bring up a grid. It's going to bring up a grid of that template or of that project structure. And then I can pick and choose what I want to bring into that particular project. So it really gives you the flexibility to build out some pretty robust templates and then kind of pick and choose what you want to bring into any of those projects. So I'm creating two projects at the same time. A regular project that's in pursuit, not available for timesheets. A link promotional project that is available for timesheets, collecting in pursuit costs. And when we win this work, we're going to kind of take it through the stages. Oregon here. Just going to grab one. And then as this project is progressing, right? So this is my navigation pane. In any of the hubs, you're going to have a summary pane. So in this summary pane, it has the number and the status. But down the bottom here, this is where I was saying, like, even though there's not an opportunity necessarily here in Vantagepoint, there's bits and pieces of the opportunity in here. So I'm in an in pursuit stage. Maybe I want to start tracking what the estimated fee and weighted fee is. So maybe it's $150,000. I am, 80% probable. So now my weighted fee is 120. So this is directly coming from the opportunity, now part of your in pursuit project that you're kind of taking through stages. Some things in the database you have to hard save. Some things are going to save for you automatically. So then we hear, okay, we submitted the proposal. This is where you would come through and you can take it through different stages, right? Now we're in just awaiting signature. So this is what I was saying. At this point, as you're moving from one stage to another, you could say, okay, well, at awaiting signature, now we should know who the project manager is, the principal, the supervisor. And again, these fields are all dynamic. So if I just start typing in Pat, right, it's going to bring that in. I know we're so used to doing this, right? Kind of scrolling and finding the right people. Excuse me. It just takes a minute to kind of get used to. You do more typing and mouse work and less scrolling here in Vantagepoint. So again, once we win this work, we hear about it, we've won the work, right? I can come in here and I can put some reasons why we won it, reasons why we lost it, if we lost it. All reportable that I can then look back to. And then at this point, the one stage, we typically will write some sort of workflow that after a certain amount of days, we might dormant the promotional number, right? And shut that down. So that way there's not two projects accepting time for too long. So that's really one of the big concept changes. Back to our dashboards. So this is where I think people find a lot of value, right? So you can see, once I'm in my dashboards, depending on who you are, I'm on like a one lost dashboard in here, but I can go to the edit mode. They kind of, if you have an administrator role and you're the one kind of updating and maintaining your dashboards, they kind of give you these dashboards here as starter packs. They kind of, whether they're by, the title or by resource manager or, right? So they kind of give you these that you can start to play with. So you're not starting from scratch when you're working with these dashboards and dash parts. You're kind of getting an idea of what Deltek gives as best services or best practices for the area. So if I click on any one of these dashboards, and this is when I would probably close my navigation pane down, right? So I can see more real estate. These you can maximize. And this is what I was talking about is in this one here, I can see compensation and revenue, what's been billed, what's been spent, what's my EAC. So looking at my project plan, but I can come through here and say, I just want to see what's been billed. Right. And then I can kind of hover over top of these areas and get information. Right. So really interactive, very customizable. Right. So some people will come through and say, we don't call it spend it billing, we call it something else. We can come in here and change the caption to any one of these columns. You can bring in additional columns. This is where you want to spend some time really developing some great dashboards that we can then get in front of people. So once they're created, we would share them out to either security roles or bring out to actual employees here. So, these are kind of the big selling points. The other area we want to just touch on would be the resource management, right? So that's where I can come in and see each of my employees, how utilized they are, what projects they're working on, right? And this is a very interactive tool as well. So this allows me to set up my project plan over in the Projects Hub. And then a lot of my clients will use this tool on their, Monday morning staffing meetings. And you can put together a combination over here of like, if you wanted to see a certain organization, or if you wanted to see your team as opposed to the entire company, right? You could put some saved searches together here that then you can use over in the plan. That way you wouldn't have to see kind of everybody here. But what's nice about this is that I can make live time changes, right? As I'm having that conversation in my meetings, dates, hours, I can reassign them to different people. Really gives a lot of flexibility in kind of the staffing, seeing the staffing and making updates, right? I could also come through here and say, show me everybody who's overutilized or show me everybody who's underutilized. And you can identify and define what you consider over and under for your firm, right? So, it's not a standard through Deltek. We obviously have best practices, but it allows you to kind of take a look at that and then toggle between those views, right? So whether you want to see just a scheduled percentage, which is looking at your hours per day as opposed to your utilization target, and then just planned hours here. So I think, like I said, I was a big Vision user, loved the product, still do. It still has a lot of value, but Vantagepoint is it's just a superior product. It's going to be user friendly. It's going to give you a lot more ability to get information to people the way you want to with recurring reports, dashboards. There's different alerts that you can set up. When we kind of work with you, we go through each of these areas and we set up time alerts. So that way people that are missing in their timesheets, we can have the system alert them. Lots of things we can automate and have the system do a lot of the things that some of us are just doing outside the system just because that's the way we've been doing it. So letting kind of Vantagepoint shine in all its kind of beautiful gloriness. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of the product now. It's I've been in it for 4 years. There's a new release every quarter, so there's new stuff happening 4 times a year, right? That they're rolling out, that they're developing, so they keep the product moving forward. I will say that one of the nice things that they listen to their clients too. Deltek is listening to us. Under the Deltek Support Center, which is a web place that you can go. I'm not going to sign in here unless I can sneak with my password, let's say. But yeah, perfect. So you can come in here, and not everybody has access to this. This is probably your administrators, but a lot of times when I'm working with clients, are saying, man, I really wish the system would do this. And I'm like, well, it doesn't do that today, but let's go take a look and see if somebody else is thinking the same thing, right? So then you can come in here and say, I want to go share my ideas for Vantagepoint. And these are all ideas that clients and partners have proposed to Deltek for improvements within the database, right? So you can see some of them around accounts payables, billing, dashboards. So you kind of come up here and you put your idea in here, and then it will tell you if it's already an existing idea. And you can vote on these ideas. More votes they get, the more likely they are going to find their way into a release. So they do listen to their clients. They find value in your ideas. And then they end up over here in the live environment.